Travels of terror, strange and spooky spots across America. The Bram Stoker Award-nominated horror duo of Kelly Florence and Meg Hafdahl is ready to take everyone on a journey across America's creepiest dark tourism locations. Grab your flashlight, garlic, and ghost hunting equipment. We're taking you on the ultimate road trip of the spookiest places around the United States.
We have two events to announce now, because we have the October 11th event at the West Theater in Duluth. Laugh Till You Scream at 9 p.m. It is a combination of stand-up comedy and horror shorts, as well as an October 6th event at the Woodbury 10 at 6 p.m. And it'll be Farx Brothers Presents Pilots. We're going to show Canusa Street and I believe a Hitch List, as well as some of our shorts. And Zach will be there, and I will be there as the filmmakers, and I think we'll have the same we have the same comedians committed. Hello, welcome to Movie Baiters. This is an episode that we will title later. We have guests this week. I usually insult Nick's ability to open a can, but he was first this week, and I'm very proud of my brother. Hello, welcome to a movie debate podcast, Movie Baiters. I'm Kyle.
I'm Nick.
I'm Kirk.
And this week we have two of our live show guests who are going to now introduce themselves in the order that they will be performing. This is how they will find out. Chris, I think you'll go first.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Chris.
What you guys say your full name? Because you're not a Farx brother, so you have to announce
Chris Dedene.
Yes, Dedenne.
Local comic.
Local to where? The Upper Midwest is the answer.
Local to the Upper Midwest.
Thank you.
And I'm Tapan Sharma. Also local
To the Upper Midwest.
the Upper Midwest.
Because we're Upper Midwest filmmers, just like you are, Tapan.
That's correct. I thought it was pronounced Dedene. I just made that up.
No. He's got a stage name now.
That's my stage name.
Oh.
It's Dedenne, like the Pokemon.
Or like Pen. Yeah. Oh.
Or
I don't know what.
Penne.
Yeah, Pen. What Dedene? Which Pokemon is that?
It's the Dedenne is the Pokemon.
I
It's
don't
a little
know the
mouse
first
Pokemon.
150.
It's Pikachu's cousin.
That's the first 150.
No, it's a devolution of Pikachu, right?
No.
Aren't we all?
Oh, it's
It's a
related.
different species of Pokemon, yeah.
It's a different. Oh, because there's a new species of Pokemon after the original 250.
There's more than 250. It's like
No,
700
150 is
now.
the OG,
Yeah,
right? 151 with
technically.
Mew.
Yes.
I know that. That's all I know. After that, I have no idea.
This is why women don't listen to this podcast. I just want to make that clear.
All right, we'll just call them all out right now. Our
I think women also know the
female
first 150
listeners.
Pokemon. We all watched Pokemon as kids.
But we're all millennials here, so I'm just gonna call that out now. My 7-year-old nephew is really into Pokemon right now.
Nice.
My 4-year-old daughter has watched Detective Pikachu. I don't know how she feels about Pokemon broadly.
Are they partial to the first 150, or do they like the other ones? Like, I feel like there's something special about that first 150, even if you know all of the.
When did it go from 150 to 151 with, was it Mewtwo or Mew is 151?
I believe Mew.
151 is Mew.
Mew is 151 and Mewtwo is 152?
No, 150 is Mew 2, isn't it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
think
I don't remember.
Very off topic.
Oh, yes, this is a
Like,
debate
that's-
podcast.
No, this is a debate. We're debating. This is part of the podcast.
we're
And it
We're
was
gonna
a
debate
movie.
facts.
They do have movies. I got the Mew holo card from the first Pokemon movie. We slept over at Colin Callender's house. I remember my friend Mark Gorman was there. We slept over. We watched the Pokemon movie the next day.
In theater?
In theaters.
Oh,
At the
nice.
Eden Prairie, old Eden Prairie Theater.
There wasn't an AMC at that time.
Right.
It was, what franchise?
It was the Mallrats Theater. Yeah.
Ooh.
It was that era, I think. I mean, I don't know.
That movie theater is now an AMC.
Now it's an AMC, yeah.
American Movie Chain as a Chinese company, as I believe what AMC is. And
That's what AMC stands for, American Movie Chain.
Something terrible like American Movie Cinema. Or,
I didn't know it stood for anything. Okay, yeah.
No, but it's I believe.
Like KFC is now, yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
now
it doesn't mean Kentucky Fried Chicken. It
but it
means,
but it basically does, kind of thing. Yeah.
Is that Colonel? Nick Farx, you probably think the least of Pokemon, if I had to guess.
Shit about Pokemon.
You don't know shit about Pokemon.
No.
This is an adult podcast, we swear, so we have to put in the things whether or not we're explicit, so And you're also going to hear planes throughout the podcast. First segment of our what is becoming a 3-segment podcast now. We release throughout the week, although you might hear Joker in between this first segment and the second segment. Again, this is how everyone except Kirk is finding out this information because we talked about it right before the podcast begins. We're here to discuss how Tapan and Cris Dedene, and just so you know, Tapan, he doesn't, it's spelled C-R-I-S. It's Cris Dedene is he's the opener for you. Now, I mean, you guys are going to get equal time, and you paid the same, clearly, because the model is that we're going to pay comics.
I still think I should dress as a Mountie. He should dress as whatever the other side of Canusa Street is.
Oh, I definitely would appreciate if one of you dressed as a Border Patrol person.
That's all you.
Again,
if you provide the wardrobe, we'll wear it.
Well, you are Canadian.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm both.
Oh, you'll have
I guess
to play
I could be both. Yeah, I could somehow be 50-50.
Do you like the joke in our pitch that we have not practiced?
We still got it. Yeah.
Where I say he's from Canada and the Midwest, so he likes to say sorry and sorry.
Okay, yeah. I was saying I apologize twice. Yeah, just off the bat. But we could say you could right. That's a good tag. That's a good.
I finally got a tag on one of your jokes.
That works. That one works.
Chris stole one of my jokes. Chris, you want to talk about that?
Wait, which Chris stole it? Chris
with an C-R-I-S. Chris stole it. Professionally known as C-R-I-S.
Those characters stole it, so that's okay. That's allowed, right?
We all have to be characters. We'll talk about that.
There's another podcast that I contribute to that I called in a joke for Donald Trump, and it was a Donald Trump joke where after he gets shot, he goes on a campaign where one of the things that he says...
He got his ear pierced at Claire's, let's be clear. That's the best joke so far about...
I think so, yes.
The first of the attempts on the 45th president.
Where Donald Trump is going on, and he says something to the effect of, I survived assassination, I'm a great president, just like Teddy Bear Roosevelt, just like Ronald Reagan, unlike those presidents that died, those loser presidents, Lincoln the loser, JFK, more like JF not okay.
That was great.
Oh, I didn't remember the joke. I told you late at night on Facebook, didn't I record that and send it to you late at night when I was...
And the JFK, JF not okay, that I stole from Kyle.
Jeez, that is not okay. I'm okay with having sent it to you when I did, probably within 24 hours of the assassination attempt, because I processed trauma because I care about the country, obviously, with jokes. Humor? I was supposed to say humor, but I said jokes. Just so you guys know, in this first segment, Brother Kirk and Brother Nick, which is how I insist on referring to them, are going to be...
I'm a fucking monk.
Oh, we are in a cult or something? Brother Kirk and Brother Nick?
I left my robe at home.
The point is you have a robe.
Like Gregorian chant.
What would a Gregorian chant from you sound like?
I don't want to know.
Do you know what a Gregorian chant is?
Kind of. It's been a long time since 4th grade.
4th grade? Did you just say 4th grade?
Yeah, that's one thing I learned about Gregorian chant.
Oh, I've never
I didn't care about it then either.
What is it?
I have no idea. I'm waiting for our brother or
it's monks Nick sitting there going, like
they're going
Yeah, and then they hit their heads on tablets or something.
Brother this, brother that.
Yeah. And then they say, I don't know.
That's Monty Python.
I know.
Life of Brian.
Yeah.
All right. So in this first segment, we're supposed to be interviewing you guys about what brought you to stand up, like who touched you and why is it wrong, and why'd that make you so funny, Chris, without an H. Sorry. Nick has better questions than that, or Kirk does.
I was going to ask the same question, but you already asked
With the touching?
Well, you added the touching, but...
Yeah.
I always add the
touching. That was unnecessary, I think.
I think every guest, you have to ask them who touched you. How did that lead you to where you are in your life?
So, ex-nun Miss B spanked me in I think 7th grade? No, 3rd grade. 3rd grade, I was 7 and it was in the 3rd grade.
That was consensual, so it's different.
Well, my parents consented to an ex-nun at a Protestant school hitting me with a ping pong paddle because I intimated that people in public schools, and I'm doing a hand motion right now because my teacher said that and did this hand motion, and I looked at my friend Steven with a PH, I don't care if you hear this, and said, oh yeah, they are, because I had actually been to public school, and I did the same hand motion, which is twirling around your ear, just so everyone's clear about what hand motion I'm doing, and for that I got yeah, twirling around my ear like that. That's the exact hand motion. Cris, without an H, Dedene just did. And she took me into my teacher sent me to the basement where the principal, an ex-nun, Miss B, spanked me with a ping pong paddle. That was a true story. And you know the hardest thing about getting spanked by a nun?
Probably your dick, right?
Yeah, I was gonna make a dick joke.
Not laughing.
Well, the weirdest part of that is actually the fact that it was in the basement.
In the basement?
Yeah. Because if it was like with all the kids there, it's like, it's obviously, whatever. It's weird, but it's like not that weird. But I mean, it is. But in the basement, I'm just
took
like,
me off alone.
Why? I don't remember ever going to the basement of my school. Like, that just seems like a next level weird.
100%. I 100% agree with you. And
what, like...
That was...
What's in the basement? Is that reserved for this?
That was where her office was, because it was a one-room school, or not a one-room schoolhouse. It was a multi-room school that was getting built out to be bigger, but as it grew in size, it shrank in student attendance. And I'm not sad at all to talk about this religious institution, academic environment shrinking as that's why I'm hilarious. So Tapan, how'd you get funny?
What, Cris, did we answer the question?
Yeah.
Do you think Cris had an answer ready?
Well, growing up, I've always been funny, and because that's like the classic comic answer, right? So I started doing comedy actually at my church. Back to, let's get religion back into this. We have a variety show every year, and I did a skit in front of the church, and everybody laughed and they clapped, and it was like a high, just making people laugh in front of a crowd. And then I started doing it more. I started hitting up the open mics, and it kind of spiraled from there.
So have you been doing it most of your life then?
No, since 2020 was my first time on stage telling jokes, and then COVID hit, and so I took a break. I tried online comedy for a little bit, and that sucks.
Online comedy, how does that work?
You tell jokes in front of like Zoom, and then nobody reacts to your jokes, and so it's just like telling jokes in an empty room, and you get no feedback. That's a terrible experience. I don't recommend it. And then 2022, I got back on stage again, started doing more open mics. Yeah, and it's just kind of open mics have led to shows, meeting people, networking. It's been a good ride so far.
That sounds great. What about you, Tapan?
Yeah, I mean, people always ask, like, how long have you been doing comedy? And it's hard to answer because, like, I think I've really only been doing it for 6 months if I add all the time up and, not like, consecutive, but just, so 6 months. But then I've been writing for probably for 5 years. But loosely, I've been writing for like 10. Like the first time I think I started texting myself stuff, which is what I still do. It's just a low barrier to entry. I don't have like a black book or anything, and it's been like 10 years since I started like actually routinely just going, okay, maybe that could be a bit or that bit of wordplay or whatever. And I don't know. I just always loved humor, comedy. Growing up, it's hard. It's tough to answer. But I've always been funny. I don't know. I've always liked comedy. And I guess in school, I did the play, I guess. We had like a mock male beauty pageant, like a comedy like pageant. I did that. It was fun. Yeah, I think there was something always to trying to be like a little bit of a class clown sort of thing. But I was also very academically so I was trying to play both sides like that, I guess. It was fun.
Well, just to circle back, I know you're also a screenwriter. So what do you mean when you are writing as a comedian?
I think because of the pandemic, most of my comedy was in writing form because I couldn't do anything else. Yeah, I haven't tried Zoom comedy. That would be tough. I started doing like a practice pitch, and it was horrible because like I didn't have it memorized. So the Zoom was up, but then like my own Word document was in front of it. So not only could I not hear anybody because they're all on mute, I couldn't even see them, and it felt so crazy to just be like trying to be funny and pitching something to myself, basically. But remembering, there are people there. And yeah, that was tough. But the open mic scene here is pretty robust, which is every night of the week you can go to at least a couple places, and just by going and doing it, like then you start getting better. You start getting invited to shows, like Chris was saying, and yeah, it's been really, I don't know, it's been fun.
Why don't you just do shows every night? What have been some of your barriers to entry? Why'd you laugh that hard?
Look, I'm reading this off a cue card.
I looked at you while I was saying the question, and now I'm stalling for our guests to be able to. You've got the next question. I'm gonna point the mic away from my mouth and eat one of the lovely sandwiches you brought me because I am famished. Otherwise, my dear Mrs. Farx doesn't feed me. I had steak tonight, literally. I don't know why.
So I got a follow-up steak with two
one
Whopper
of these hot
Juniors.
dagos from the local establishment. like Tapan is saying, every night of the week you can do stand-up in the Twin Cities. There's open mics every night. You could be on stage trying different jokes. You could be practicing, getting reps on stage. For me, in my personal life, I've got 3 kids and a day job, and so I don't have time to go out and do comedy every night of the week. And I have gone to different shows every night of the week, and I see the same people there like every show. And there are local comics that are just grinding it out, and they are literally hitting every open mic every night of the week, and they're getting so many reps on stage. And those are the ones that are doing the bigger shows. They're making a name for themselves faster than I am, because it's about reps, it's about stage time, it's about getting your name out there. And if you have the time to spend doing the craft, it's that it takes, 1,000 hours to master something kind of deal. You can do it. You just have to have the time to put into it. And for me, comedy's a hobby. I've got a day job. This is never going to replace my day job. It's something I enjoy doing, and I do it in my free time when I can get away from the family. So that's kind of the barrier right now. Could I grind it out? Sure. But then I'd have to trade off in my personal life more so than I already am now. They have, some of the road comics, they start doing these small shows in small towns, and they'll do the Wisconsin circuit or the Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, and you do the small clubs, and you're driving to make a couple $100 every night. And it's like, yeah, you can do that if you're trying to have that grind mindset where you're trying to make a career for yourself in comedy. And I think that's kind of the next level, is where you kind of quit your day job, or you work a job that's real flexible, and then you go on the road and you do the small shows, and you start just really working it to make a buck. But that's not where I see myself going with comedy. This is really just something I enjoy doing right now.
All right. Before Tapan answers, I just want to interject that the ultimate goal of the Farx Brothers Presents is to have a group of people going out regularly, 2 comics, 2 filmmakers, going to the North Dakota, Iowa circuit, the Minnesota circuit, and the Wisconsin circuit, showing movies, and 2 comics would open the show. Then you'd see an hour to an hour plus of movie, and then you'd get to interact with the filmmakers through the comics. Tapan, I feel as though Chris has been nakedly honest with us. Can you take your clothes off and get nakedly honest with us as well?
Yeah.
Whoa, put
I'm
that back on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Barry. Actually, so the funny thing is that before the comedy outlet happened more so because when I dropped out of med school, the whole idea was acting, writing, stand up, all that, right. But pandemic, obviously, it was just writing. But then screenplays you send off, and even if they do well, only 1 or 2 people maybe are reading your screenplay, and that is a really inefficient way to get your stuff out there, because people are being paid to read. But then the immediacy of comedy, of just getting that immediate reaction and getting your voice out there, and there's no cost really, right, except the gas and the time and stuff. So the barrier in terms of the screenwriting suddenly was okay, let's do stand up. But the barrier with stand up is just, it can be intimidating to go up, just to go and enter this scene that that people are already, like Chris was saying, people already know each other. They're already the comics in the scene, they all know each other, and so you stand out in a good or bad way, or probably in whatever. You feel it's very easy to feel like an outsider entering, even though I'm from Minnesota. Chris, you're from Minnesota.
Detroit.
But how do you feel Minnesotan? I don't know.
Not at all.
Not at all? So either way, the point is, like, regardless of where you're from, it's like, I remember getting questions like, where are you from? Are you just passing through? It's like, no, I'm from here. I didn't know I had to clarify that, So that might have been a barrier of, like,
Can I defend a random stupid person who asks that question as someone who's asked that question? I just feel it's a natural question. Oh, are you from... Like, I was literally at a work-related happy hour today, and I was talking to two people with the same name who grew up in the same exurb that is south of the exurb that Nick Farx grew up in. And they had the same name from the same exurb, maybe 10 years apart. And they were just like, oh, hey, we have the same name. We're both from the same exurb. And you happen to ask us where we're from. Well,
totally. Yeah. Oh, I don't even think there's like a racial component to it. I just mean like the idea of feeling like when entering a new scene, like let's say I wanted to enter, I don't know, like he says you wanted to enter like the salsa dancing scene or the whatever. Just not being in the scene. I've heard a lot about how, Minnesota can be kind of siloed and cliquish and that kind of thing. Those are all the things.
I'll tell you the thing that I don't think I've said on the podcast, but I enjoy saying it every business meeting I'm ever in. Minnesota is the hardest state in the union to get anyone to move to. It is also the hardest state in the union to get anyone to move away from because, hey, where's your family, Tapan?
Right, yeah.
Hey, Nick Farx, where's our family from? Hey, Chris, without any other letters than CRIS. Where's your family, right? Your 5-person strong family, where are they at?
Yeah, my immediate family's here, yeah.
And where is your wife's family from?
My wife's family's from here.
Oh!
So I'm stuck here, right? There's a lot of people, their spouses from Minnesota, they're stuck here.
The sirens of Minnesota.
But, the flip side of all of that is that as long as you keep showing up and you just like, they can tell that you're serious about comedy, that you're putting in the work, and that you're actually funny, et cetera, et cetera. People have been extremely friendly. So people have been, some warm up quickly, some it takes time, whatever, because they don't know who you are. And so and like Chris was saying, like you start going up. I haven't asked for anything yet. I'm hearing that you should at some point, but just kind of you just wait for people to start inviting you to
What
shows.
do you mean ask for something?
Oh, asking for spots on shows and things like that. I'm hearing that, it's part of the thing and you should start doing that. But for now, I'm just, as a test to myself, just like trying to be as funny as I can on stage, just being as good as I can. Like I said, regardless if I'm a road comic or if I'm not, whatever, that's not an explicit goal. I just want to be as good as I can at stand-up. It all comes from the writing and performance and all that stuff. And ultimately, if you do have content out there, I know Chris is putting stuff out. I've been too shy about it so far, but
some people recommend that. One of the director of Paprika is always to me like, why would you put anything out there? People can judge that, and I'm like, who cares?
Well, that's the point. I mean, the idea. I know some people who they've garnered a following of people who like what they're doing, and then suddenly, let's say now you want to crowdfund for a short film, they know that they can trust your voice, and you've got people who like what you're doing and an audience that's built in. So hypothetically that makes sense, and it all kind of feeds into each other. I think you're the one who said that. We were talking about that quote. Was it Stavros was saying, that everything is a bringer, right?
Oh, so every show is a bringer.
Every show, that's every show. Every movie, every musician.
That's capitalism, baby.
That's every person has to put butts in seats, and so if that's in order to keep doing what you want to do and to I don't know. Yeah, to do your thing on.
No, both of you know, and you're really good at this. That's why everyone should come to the show. Again, this is a promotional podcast.
Yeah. And so ideally, ideally, I'll start getting, feel confident enough to put stuff out there, and I think that'll be fun. I don't know. That's a goal. What else is a goal? Chris, what else? So your goal is to just, you want to be as good as you can at stand-up, right? That's kind of your, just to have, or no? Do you have other? Do
the snap then answer.
Good snap, Nick.
That was Nick. It's an audio podcast.
The goal with the social media, building a following, so when you have shows, you can bring a crowd in, is kind of That's the goal with that, right? So there's comics that put media out there, and I follow them on social media like Instagram, and then they're like, I'm coming to Minneapolis, and I'm like, oh cool, well, I'm gonna go to the show, and I wouldn't have gone to the show otherwise if they didn't have like an Instagram out there. And so my thought behind that is like, well, I'll build a following, and then like if somebody gives me stage time or they book me on their show, then I can throw that out there like, look, I'm going to be on this show. And then it's more than just like my friends and family coming to support me. It's like actually fans. And so I see value in building the social media to like sell tickets. Social media is there to sell tickets because the only way to monetize social media is on YouTube selling ads. Like Instagram and TikTok, you can't make any money on directly. YouTube, you can put ads on your YouTube and make money on that. And I have this like lofty goal of like, well, maybe I'll make money on YouTube, right? But to make money on YouTube, you have to have like 500 followers and 10,000 hours of content consumed before you can start making any money on it. It's very a high bar. You know, it's like a passive income thing. Like it doesn't cost me anything other than time to create the videos, and once they're out there, maybe they'll take off, but it's still about building, I hate to say it, but like a brand. So like if I do shows locally, I can throw it out there to the YouTube platform and be like, hey, fans, I have a show on this date, come out and support it. One thing I've realized is like one of the shows I did, I brought 10 people to it, and they were friends and family and coworkers. And then I let the person promoting the show know, like, hey, I brought 10 people to the show. And that was like a third of the crowd. And then he booked me again because I brought 10 people to the show. And like that was a big deal for them because I brought so many people to the show to see me. And so if you can bring enough people to come see you, then you get repeat shows out of it, and then it kind of like, you make videos from that, those videos maybe get more fans, and it just kind of spirals from there.
What is your writing process like? And well, I guess especially Tapan, when it comes to you, since you also do screenwriting, there will be a component of how is it similar to, how do you find it similar or dissimilar to screenwriting? But you guys can do rock, paper, scissors, or whatever you want to do.
No sword fight with
coin.
their,
Penises. Sword fight with the penises to see who answers the question first, I guess, says Kyle.
Tapan won the penis sword fight.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a process. I think I just have to force myself to sit and do it. There's also a little bit of just always having your eyes and ears open, and if I ping off a certain word or an idea, I'll text myself, and I'll follow that spark. Maybe I should have a process. Maybe I should just, I don't do timers, but I've heard that that's a good idea. That might be a good idea. Set an egg timer for 5 minutes, write for 5 minutes, and then that's enough to get you going. I just have to open up that Word document, focus on a single idea. It does help to have a second thing to work on, so if I get stuck on one, then I can just, sometimes I'll rebel and work on the other one. That's still progress. As far as jokes, I don't know. A lot of it's just sort of focused daydreaming, and I don't know, but I'm just saying that in hindsight. I'm not really sure. What about you, Chris?
So I have a joke notebook like a lot of comics do, and so like whenever something funny happens to me, I'll write it down in there. Or whenever I have a good idea, I'll write it down in there. And then if I get enough things that are cohesive or enough jokes that are similar, I'll kind of write them together into a set. And so when I write my jokes, I have an idea of like stringing together enough jokes that it tells a story, but not in a way where I'm just like, I don't want to be like a one-liner comic that's just out there throwing like, here's a funny joke, here's a funny joke, here's a funny joke, and then not having any segues or any cohesion to the story. And so I'll always try to have like 2 or 3 jokes that I can tie together with a theme. And so like I've got a couple of jokes that I like that are like a good one-off joke, but I'm saving it till I can get more jokes that pair with it till it becomes a story. So my style of comedy is I like the rapid fire jokes where it's just like joke after joke after joke, but I like them to all segue or tie into each other. I don't want to just be like a Mitch Hedberg where he's just like, here's a joke, and then here's an unrelated non sequitur joke, and here's an unrelated non sequitur joke. It's funny, but in practice, it's really hard to remember all of that stuff as you're trying to just tell jokes on stage and you're monologuing. It helps to have a story to keep your rhythm and go somewhere with where you're going with the story you're trying to tell.
How do you measure output over time? Tapan, I'm going to go to you first because I have an example I could give. Is it per day, per week, per month, per year?
That's a good question. I don't do any of that. That's a good question. I mean, what sucks is if I think of a good idea, I've got basically 24 hours to kind of like feel good about that, and then it resets the next day. And I have to prove myself every day. I feel like every time I have, or I'll think of a great idea, and then the next day I'll be like, oh fuck, now I have to do justice to this idea. And I don't know if that's like, am I going to get there? I don't know. Like, I've heard Aaron Sorkin has the same thing where like every time he has a new thing, he feels like, oh, now's the time I'm going to suck. I'm going to find out I'm a fraud and all this stuff. And then you build your way up to like proving yourself wrong or whatever. And then, I don't know. So it's just, as far as output, as long as I'm always engaging in the process of like just thinking, keeping my eyes open, ears open, just writing stuff down, texting myself, like, and then to Nick's question about, sometimes I don't know if an idea is like a joke. It could be a sketch. It could be like, so I guess one example is like, I thought of like, like Superman. So Superman is an illegal alien, but nobody cares because he's white.
No,
okay?
his parents were born here, so when they
his parents,
him,
no, his actual parents.
Oh well, Jonathan and Martha.
Yeah, so he's adopted. Yeah, so he's a refugee. He's like an orphan refugee. He's an illegal alien.
Well, the Farx Brothers are pro-adoption.
And nobody, but the point is nobody cares because he's white. Also, he could destroy everybody. So that's et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, okay, fine. So it's kind of funny. But then I started seriously thinking about like, what would Superman, his life be like if he happens to be white? What if he was brown? What if he was black? How would he be treated? And so then that became like a serious look at like potentially for like a short or maybe or something where it's the idea that so Superman, like his alter ego Clark Kent, is kind of shat on because he's like, this demure, yeah. But then Superman is celebrated. But actually, I think if he was brown, like let's say if like the whole mild-mannered model minority of Clark Kent, like he would be celebrated for like fitting that box, and Superman would be like seen as a threat, like. It put him in a cage,
because
etc.
of the superpowers they try to contain. Well, more than they try to stop Superman already. Isn't this some of the plot of? There is a Superman of color. I know J.J. Abrams was working on.
I'm not familiar with the comics as much, so it's possible and probable that they've explored this. And that was like it's funny that like the only person who really cares is like Lex Luthor, who's like skinhead billionaire Lex Luthor, who's like, where are you from? Kansas? No, where are you really from? Like just. So it's like you just develop like, you're like, okay, that's joke territory, but then there's a serious look at it, and I don't know. Then you figure out kind of like, how does it make sense to say this as a joke? Where does it make sense to keep it as like a short story or something?
Well, it's also, you're playing with how many people know about Superman lore, which Superman is one of those things that most people know about. I quickly have to, for the linear listeners, point out that Abdi Muhammad on the last episode pointed out that the original skinheads were from Europe, I think England, and they were from the working class who fought fascism, and then it became a neo-Nazi thing later. Yeah, I don't know about it, but it goes back to the Baldies, so you'd have to research the Baldies who fought against, and this is a project he's specifically working on, and again, I'm doing this for the linear listeners, but I think part of the problem you guys have when you do stand-up, and I've heard you say this specifically, Tapan, is the audience only knows what you tell them. So if you go in with a pop culture reference, I mean, Nick Farx knows the least about Superman in this room. I guarantee you, last Superman movie he heard or thought of was the Christopher Reeve one.
The Richard Pryor one.
Oh, that was
that's
Superman
fine.
3 or 4?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that's probably 3.
Well, this goes back to Pokemon. Like, I think anything that you can reference that was part of the monoculture, you're fine.
Yeah.
I think you're safe. There is an age thing, of course, but I mean, Superman keeps recurring. Pokemon.
Superman's been around since like the 1920s. So
1930s. It's the late 1930s.
Everyone knows the basics of like.
Yeah, you can just be like Superman. He's an illegal alien, but he's white. Like that basic premise.
Everyone's gonna know. Everyone's gonna know that.
Cool. If you're like, but Superman's cousin Steel, he's black. And like, then you're losing people when you start going.
His cousin's name is Steel?
Well, I don't know if it's his cousin.
Oh yeah, there was like a Shaq, or didn't he play?
There's a
Man of Steel.
Superman called Steel.
Or Steel, just Steel.
Just
yeah,
Steel.
Yeah. No, but pop culture references are, it's like if you dip into anything that's part of just, like you could do Michael Jackson, everybody knows Michael Jackson, you know. Even
Michael
like Gen
Jackson?
Z must still probably knows Michael. So, yeah.
There's going to be a movie that comes out next year, and supposedly in 2025, it's going to be a defense of he was a victim of the whatever happened there with the licking the buttholes or whatever happened.
What?
Yeah,
No, like
what are you
supposedly.
talking about?
Yeah, I've never heard of
No,
that.
no, no. Supposedly, what he
Or like his dad. I mean, we all know his dad abused him, basically. I mean, at least verbally. I don't know.
verbally and probably physically
Probably,
hit
yeah,
him.
yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
a different time, and like
Yeah, how much do you? I mean, speaking of watching Joker, like, that's that thing of like, where do you draw the line between like trauma? No, I mean the idea, because like what this movie, I think Joker is
we have
careful
Joker
about
on in the background just for
blaming
that.
blaming his. Like, how much can you blame somebody's actions on like their parent, right? That's what versus the person themselves.
That's like a
I don't
nature
know.
versus nurture question. It's a good bait.
Or how much
and-
culpability does he have for his actions? It's like obviously no. I mean, Chris laugh. This is
Can we
really-
circle back to the licking the buttholes? I have no idea what that
No,
is.
supposedly-
but I am super
I might have
intrigued.
probably
And
subconsciously tried to move away from
I
it. I
am
don't know what
totally
that's about.
basing this on Andrew Schultz's stand-up. I have no idea how Michael Jackson may or may not have violated the children he spent time with, and to be quite honest, he's dead, and I don't care. And I recently heard someone making the argument of, like, well, I mean, you were a parent who let your child around a pop star. I like lots of celebrities that I would never let my children around for even a second. So if you leave your child around a celebrity and then that clear weirdo does something weird with your child, aren't you a little bit culpable? Because, like,
I don't know how clear it was that he, like, what his inclinations were.
well,
for,
we
or
all
whatever.
know that
At
he
the
was
time-
hurt
at the
people
time.
hurt people. And it should have been clear that he was hurt because by this point, he's cutting up his face. He's, dealing with his vitiligo in a very extreme way.
But I'm saying I don't know how it was treated as like, it wasn't treated as like, oh, he's. I don't think, because I was a kid when this was happening. It was just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, look at the weird
Same.
stuff he's doing to his face. Like, no one was like, oh, what trauma is there underneath it? No one was thinking about those things.
This is great.
Or even like Britney Spears, same thing. They're like, oh, look at this crazy woman shaving her head. What an idiot. Now we're like, oh no, like
maybe society was
maybe
bad to her and we shouldn't.
which we were, yeah. So
That's the value
Anyway.
of talking it out, I think, and saying we have such a fear of saying the wrong thing. Some people will say nothing, and that leads to, oh, maybe I'll let my child hang out with the guy that owns a monkey. And you know what I'm going to pivot into right now because I'm a bad parent? I started watching Inhumans with my daughters because Lockjaw, can anyone tell me who Lockjaw is right now?
yeah, it's the dog
From
Dog.
in Humans, or I don't like.
yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen it. Apparently, it's not a good show.
He's the
but-
one that licks the buttholes.
No, I mean a dog's
Lockjaw's
dude.
he's like a pit bull.
He's a
type of
huge puggle, maybe.
puggle. Something.
He's got a tuning fork in his forehead.
Does he talk though? I don't know anything.
He doesn't talk.
Okay.
He's a teleporter, and he shows
teleporter.
up in a Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends episode.
All right.
So I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch the Inhumans pilot with my daughters, and I had to skip past when was it Black Bolt is banging his wife, who's the queen. Which, for whatever reason, ABC felt that was necessary to put in a children's cartoon or not a cartoon, but like a live-action show that.
Medusa.
But
then I think you're right.
But
It's
wait,
Medusa.
then he did show up in Multiverse of Madness,
Yeah, Black Bolt
right?
does.
Like
Yes.
like that same actor.
That same actor,
Yeah, yeah, and
Anson
same-
something, and I'm not that.
So that was kind of interesting, fun. I guess.
Well, the point I'm making is that Medusa, thank you, Chris, without an H, gets her head shaved
Oh.
by bad guys in that episode, and I was like, should I show that to the Farxlings?
because that's like bodily.
That's a
mutilation.
bodily violation. It's a bodily mutilation.
Those
and
are live,
follicles.
connected to your.
Yeah.
Head.
It's skin.
Damn.
It's your largest organ.
it's brutal,
They're cutting
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And they because it's also her superpower because she can like move things around with her hair.
What was the first time you did stand up? What was that? The first time you really you got like.
When'd you pop that cherry, boy?
Outside of the church show, it was the Sisyphus open mic.
Nice.
It was a Thursday night. I used my star.
How'd it go?
Friend of mine who's a local comic. His name's Mike. Encouraged me. He's like, put a star next to your name, and I was like, all right, and I did it. And then I went on stage and I did my 3 minutes, and I I told a story that was hilarious, and because people laughed and whatever, and the crowd liked it, and they were really supportive. And then after that show, Mike was like, "Hey, I got a show next week. I'm headlining. Do you want to do a guest set?" And then I went from doing Sisyphus to doing Acme as an opening slot, and that was like, holy shit! Like I'm doing like. Most people go years before they get to do like an Acme show, and just because I knew a guy who saw my stuff and liked it, having those connections, that's like, comedy's a lot like the working world for us white collar corporate people who like a guy who knows a guy and he gets you in, and so that was a really cool experience to go from just doing open mics to now I'm doing an Acme show for a headlining paying audience.
Mike got you from an open mic to Acme?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say all of those words together. Tapan, when did you pop that cherry?
I was in LA, and I was like on LA casting where they cast a wide net, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, I don't know. And they have things from short films to features to, background to lead, commercial, music videos, etc., etc. So, but then weirdly enough, they were asking for stand-up comedians at the belly room at the Comedy Store, which is not a typical way that they, like, people are telling me, like, yeah, people are having a hard time. Like, there's a huge supply of comedians. Why would they reach out like that? And maybe it was just to like get a different type of whatever. So I submitted some jokes. I didn't even submit like myself a self-tape or anything, and they booked me based on that, just the jokes. And then I tried to get out of it because I was kind of like, give it to somebody who's done this before. like I don't deserve this, right? And then the booker was playfully bullied me into doing it. He's like, fuck you, you're doing this, and you got this. And
who's that booker? Remember that person's name now. Please.
I forgot his. I'm Insta friends with him. I forgot his.
Keep telling your story while you look it up. You can do both.
And he, but I'm glad he did. And I went up there with papers in my hand. I was like shaking.
You had your jokes with you?
Yeah, because that was the first time ever doing stand-up ever at the and then but it was at like this place that I'd seen tons of shows like, online and not on person at that point. I don't know.
Comedy Store is famous.
Comedy Store, yeah. And it was so intimidating. I was like, oh my God, I feel like a fraud and stuff. But then, and I ran the light, which you're not supposed to do, because the lights were so bright, I couldn't even see the light. And I somehow did 10 minutes instead of 5, which is a no-no. Yeah, because like, again, it was a time warp up there. It was out of body. I was like, I apologize after and everything. But, and I didn't even get through all my jokes. I had like all this stuff.
Were you getting laughs?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The audience couldn't tell.
Yeah, in fact, they were like, I think they were like, yeah, I got more. They're like, oh yeah, do more. But then I got off, and then
I bet you did.
Yeah, and then he was like, I was like, I'm sorry. He's like, no, it's okay. We'll invite you back. That was because like, and then somebody, I think John Campanelli. I don't know if you know that guy's name.
Best friends.
He started like kind of doing those nights. The problem in LA is that a lot of the shows are bringers, so you have to bring 3 people just to get 3 minutes.
Capitalism.
And you can bring 4 people, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and like. And not just, these aren't free shows. These are like, you have to buy a ticket and 2 drinks. So, and for that amount of money, you can see the best comics in the world. Because they're doing stuff, they're trying shit out at every place in LA.
Why would you pay $15 plus $10 per drink?
Plus
you're paying $35.
Yeah, you're paying $35. Yeah.
That's a concert ticket in Iowa.
To see an open mic, basically. So that's why, like, I'm glad I had those experiences there, but in order to really rack up experience, like that, you're gonna run out of friends really quickly. It doesn't matter how many acting classes you're in and how many improv shows you go see, so then they go see, like all that stuff. Like, there's tons of people in LA, so yeah, you can safely probably get people to come, but mutual support and everything. But it's a great deal for the bars and stuff, but it's not really like a merit-based thing. It's just like, anyway, you want the freedom to just fuck around and like. Go to like that's why here I was in El Paso doing like this ACT boot camp thing, and I was like, oh, let me do comedy the night before, but they have a place called, I think it's like the Comic Strip or something, but there was nowhere to do comedy Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, nothing.
So they can't grow it.
Yeah, and I mean I don't know how big El Paso is, but I was like, damn, we're lucky to be here that we've got. You can go places Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That Tuesday might be one of the busiest nights between Acme and Saloon and.
Irish bar.
Yeah, Morrissey's and like I think there's a couple
in St. Louis Park.
Yeah, and I think House of Comedy might also be Tuesday.
All of you
Anyway.
owe us money for however many views this episode gets. That's a joke to all of those places. I'm assuming you got it. Question that arises from that, and I know we'll move on to part 2. I'm really sorry, Kirk. You did comedy in LA. You're not from Minnesota. So both of your perspectives have an outside view on Minnesota. Cris, you were quick to say you're not from Minnesota, so I'll start with you. Why do you feel you're not of Minnesota? Because I feel very strongly about that, personally, as someone who wished I'd grown up with my original Farx family.
As an outside Minnesotan moving to Minnesota, I look at like my friend circle who I have here, and it's all expats, probably not the right word, but it's all people like that moved to Minnesota. It's not like Minnesotans that grew up here, because they've all got friends that grew up here. And so like the people I hang out with are all people that moved here. And I don't feel like I've been fully like adopted that Minnesotan culture. There's days that it's cold and I just like, that's cold, I'm gonna stay inside, and I feel like my wife who's from here is like, oh, we'll just put on more clothes and brave the cold because that's what Minnesotans do. And I'm like, nah, that's not what
Wait, isn't
we do.
Detroit cold? Is that
Detroit is not nearly as cold as Minnesota. We're like
Really?
20 degrees warmer.
Tapan, do you resonate with anything as far as like you're a native you're Canadian and Minnesotan, you say sorry and sorry. You say sorry 2 times, that's your joke. I'm sorry to fuck up your joke.
No. Yeah, I feel Minnesotan because I don't know. I grew up I moved here when I was 10. Then through high school, I was here for masters. I spent probably at least half my life here, or maybe 2/3 or more. So I don't know. Also, Minnesota's like the Canada of the U.S. I don't know. It's in many ways very similar, I think. But yeah, I don't know. But I also didn't really know what that meant until you don't really know what it means until you go somewhere, until you like go to college, you go somewhere else, and then you come back and you're like, oh, I didn't realize like how Minnesotan I was, like in certain terms.
How
of
Minnesotan were you when you went to the East Coast? I won't say where.
No, I just mean like the sort of like the that nice layer we all have, whether it's whatever that is, that polite kind of kind of thing. That all that stuff is just. It's just ingrained in us, and you don't realize like that we're doing it. Maybe.
When someone cuts you in line, you're like, "Oh, excuse me," even though you've wronged me.
Yeah, and that's also a very Canadian thing. So it's like it doesn't surprise me. Like, oh, okay, I don't really know how to parse like why I'm like that.
Because you're from Canada and Minnesota. Isn't
Yeah.
At
the same time, I've never really gotten accustomed to the cold either. Like, even though I've lived my whole life with those winters, I still hate the winter, and I get the old seasonal depression. All that's like. All that, but I mean, last winter was mild, but even still, it was just the gloominess of it. So I don't know if you don't feel like you have to get used to it to be considered Minnesotan. It's just something you just trudge through.
Kirk, I'm going to try
Did you say East Coast? You've been on the East Coast and the West Coast?
Yeah. I didn't do, actually, did I do comedy in the East Coast? Maybe once in New York. No, of course, in New York, yeah.
So you've been doing comedy
Everyone's
basically everywhere else, right?
That actually might have catalyzed my last 6 months, is because there was like a comedy festival out there for like social justice / comedy projects, and they had like an open mic, and the New York comics there, like their hustle and their bustle, their whole dynamic. I was like, it was really intoxicating, just like how much work they're putting in, like calling bookers, doing all that, going on tours and stuff. And I was like, oh shit, like yeah, I need to step up. I met like Ali Sultan, who's a Minnesota comedian, but I met him there. He shot a special at Sisyphus on YouTube. Yeah, just sort of hearing it, I was just really just inspired, encouraged, jealous, all those things of like, okay, here we go. And then when I came back, I think I really started doing the open mic circuit really hard.
Watch this. I'm going to tease part 2. You've all seen the Batman. Nick, you didn't like it, so talk about why you didn't.
Well, so the first, I don't know, maybe the first hour I liked, but then there's too much Catwoman, there's too much Zoe Kravitz with her one expression.